Conservative Party rebels are plotting with opposition parties to take control of Parliament. They want to tie the government's hands with legislation that will block a no-deal exit, which they say would devastate the nation's economy. But at the same time, there's growing speculation that the country could indeed be facing a snap election as Johnson and his cabinet are meeting this afternoon in London. Joining me now in the studio is Philip Turle, our International Affairs Editor. Philip, so are we expecting an announcement on a snap election or not?
Well, I can't answer that, I'm afraid, Annette, but what I can tell you is that this cabinet meeting is due to kick off in about 40 minutes. And I think we will know a little bit more after that. Now, the bottom line here is that this meeting is being held to discuss what the cabinet can do to push through Boris Johnson's agenda. Boris Johnson is extremely worried about the makeup in the House of Commons because he has only a majority of one seat. So if one of his members pulls the plug, his government will be without a majority, and it's very difficult to push through any legislation. So they are trying to come together with some kind of tactic to push through the Brexit deal, which is what he wants to do by the 31st of October. Now, there are sources that say that the government has worked out a series of proposals for the European Union to try to negotiate some kind of deal so that Britain doesn't have to leave with a no deal on the 31st of October. But that can only be pushed through if there is no kickback from within the House of Commons itself. So this is going to be the make or break week. And one of the ways around that Boris Johnson has at the moment is maybe calling a snap general election, principally for one good reason. That if you look at the opinion polls, the latest YouGov opinion poll in the UK puts the Conservative Party, Boris Johnson, on 33%, Labour on 22%, the Liberal Democrats on 21%, and the Brexit Party of Nigel Farage on 12%. So Boris Johnson is way ahead in the polls, and he thinks that if he holds an election now, it will take 5 weeks to organise, that'll be before the 31st of October. He will win a majority, and that will put him in a strong position to get that Brexit deal through.
Now, are fireworks expected, given what you've just told me, when Parliament reconvenes tomorrow?
Fireworks might even be an understatement, Annette. There are several possibilities. Possibility one, the opposition, with some Conservative MPs whom you talked about before, who might face being kicked out of the Conservative Party for doing this, may join forces to call emergency legislation to prevent Boris Johnson from leaving the EU, Britain leaving the EU without a deal, and pushing him to go to Brussels to ask for an extension of Article 50 after the 31st of October. That is a nightmare scenario for Boris Johnson. Second scenario is a vote of no confidence. I don't think we're going to see that tomorrow, but at the moment nobody really knows what is going on in the UK as far as politics is concerned. That will come from the Labour Party and other opposition parties who will try to overrule Boris Johnson to force him back to the polls to call an early election. The Labour Party hopes they're going to win that, and they then will ask for an extension of Article 50 and either call a new referendum or try to negotiate some kind of new deal with the EU. So those are the two scenarios, plus maybe a snap election that Boris Johnson might call. So anything can happen this week in the House of Commons.
Methinks, Philip, that you're in for an interesting week.
I think so too.
Philip Turle there, thanks for that.